Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2018 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series where your man Louie Tee aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2018 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series as we cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single player selected. We will add bonuses when necessary, divide by the number of picks, which will then yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer, are in total control as you guys will decide who will be up next in the series by simply using your ability to get into the comment section and be first and leave the two requisite comments next and the team you'd like to see next. So an example would be next Ravens, as in the case of the Baltimore Ravens, who happen to be up next in this series. We're talking Baltimore Ravens, and this is supposed to be Ozzie Newsome's swan song as general manager of the Baltimore Ravens. And he went out with a bang if you're talking from a quantity standpoint. 12 selections for these Ravens. A number of guys that are going to come in and potentially make this roster and fill some holes for this Ravens football team. But was there a lot of quality in this draft? We will discuss and dissect. We start at the top of this draft, where I thought the Ravens and Ozzie Newsome did a masterful job of manipulating the early stages of the draft. Guy you want not there necessarily, or maybe you don't feel like it's great value at your original pick. You trade back and select a guy that you were probably thinking about taking in the first place. In the first round, 25th overall selection, tight end out of South Carolina, Hayden Hearst is the selection to get this Ravens draft underway. So I'm not going to break Hayden Hearst down, as I've already done that in the 2018 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of Hayden Hearst and some other guys that I've already taken care of in this draft, go to the playlist section on the Louie Tee Network on YouTube and look for 2018 Draft Prospects 101 series. But I will tell you this about Hayden Hearst. He is going to be 25 when the season starts, so a little bit older than your normal rookie. That's because he had a baseball career previously, took his shot at the baseball thing, didn't work out, went back to school. The rest is history. Nonetheless, this guy is unlike most tight ends that we see come out of the collegiate ranks. He can actually block and probably will get even better as a blocker. He's a two-way player in terms of blocking and catching the football. He's a good enough athlete catching it out of the backfield, but he can also block, so you can move this guy around, use him as a chess piece on the football field. I've always said this, and it's amazing that it's taking the Ravens so long, and they've tried. I don't want to do that. I shouldn't do that, because I've always said that Joe Flacco is better when he's got a reliable tight end. He's been at his best throughout his career when he's had a reliable tight end, and they've tried over the years. Max Williams and all of the other guys, Dennis Pitta couldn't stay healthy. They've tried to make sure that Joe Flacco was comfortable with his tight ends. It just hasn't manifested itself. And so after Todd Heap, really, with Pitta not being able to stay healthy, he was going to be the guy to bridge the gap, but he couldn't stay healthy. Here's a guy that's going to make Joe Flacco comfortable. And I love the fact that they doubled down on the tight end position in this draft. They're going to have tight ends for days, and Flacco is going to be very happy with what he has at his disposal at the tight end position. And they're getting better at receiver as well. Made some moves in free agency, also made some moves in his draft. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But Hayden Hearst is a guy that's going to come in and right away upgrade the Ravens tight end position and give them the option to run it or throw it. And so this is a great pick for them. Love what he brings to the table. And I'll tell you this much. The pick itself, the player that you're getting here, is a triple. But because of the maneuvering, the trading back and acquiring more picks, more assets that would allow you to come up and ultimately do what you did with your next pick, I love the fact that you were able to trade back, pick up more assets, and still get the guy that you were probably thinking of taking earlier in the draft when your name came up, but said, you know what, don't really love the value here. Let's move back and get more value and still get the guy that we were thinking of taking. And with that being said, in the first round, 25th overall selection, tight end out of South Carolina, Hayden Hearst for me is a...
Hits one high! Hits it deep! It is out of here!
As we move on in this Ravens draft, I've always said that the 32nd pick in the draft is always a hot spot. If you're looking for that quarterback that you want that extra year on in terms of that rookie deal, that's the place to do it. Go back into the first round. We saw it with Teddy Bridgewater. We saw it again here. It's not a coincidence that the Ravens eyeballed and identified a guy as someone that they liked. And this is a really good situation here for this next player because they've got a coach that's worked with Tyrod Taylor, that's worked with some mobile quarterbacks in the past. And so now all of a sudden, you look at this situation, you look at what they have. They got Robert Griffin III in there. You've got some mobile quarterbacks. I still don't know how this dynamic is going to work itself out because Joe Flacco is the direct opposite of this next player. But nonetheless, love the skill set, love what this guy brings to the table. Anxious to see what he's going to be in this Ravens offense. Talking about first round pick, 32nd overall, Louisville quarterback, Lamar Jackson. So once again, already have broken down Lamar Jackson in the Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown, go there. However, this is an intriguing pick to say the least. This is a guy that is more of a modern day quarterback. You're seeing more of these guys come into the league, guys that are athletically gifted, that are dual threats. Don't quite know how he fits in this Ravens offense because, again, it's not like this team has Marcus Mariota running the show right now. They have a guy in Joe Flacco that has had a number of different coordinators, and he's going to have a new one this year, if I'm not mistaken. And so the question then becomes, does the Ravens, and I've always said this when regarding Lamar Jackson, if you're going to select him, you better have a plan. So I'm anxious to see what the plan is in Baltimore because Flacco isn't going anywhere. To me, anytime soon. I think you've got at least 2 more years of Joe Flacco in Baltimore. I could be wrong, but barring injury or some kind of crazy transformation in Baltimore where they just decide to go in a totally different direction, and maybe the next head coach comes in because Azim's going to be done after this year. If the Ravens don't win this year, after the heartbreak of not making the postseason last year, you could see a shakeup with your head coach and John Harbaugh being out. I mean, he's been there a long time, one of the longer tenured head coaches in the league, but hasn't won of late. And so could dare I say, he could be out and maybe the next coach comes in and he's ready to start the whole new Lamar Jackson chapter in Baltimore. I don't know, but we'll see when this guy actually gets on the field. Will they put together a little package? I assume they will put together a Lamar Jackson package, similar to what happened in San Francisco with Alex Smith. I'm assuming the same thing will happen here in Baltimore with Joe Flacco. They're going to put together a package for Lamar Jackson, similar to what the 49ers did for Colin Kaepernick, and eventually they're going to make the move to Lamar Jackson. And when that does happen, everyone will be focused in on the Baltimore Ravens to see how this transformation takes place. But in the meantime, highly gifted athlete, still has some things to work on from a mechanic standpoint and accuracy and things of that nature. But if you're talking skill set, speed, athleticism, arm talent, all of those things, this guy possesses them in spades. And so everyone's anxious to see when this guy's going to get his opportunity. But I'm not going to push Joe Flacco out of the door yet. So I want to see how this thing goes in Baltimore. But one thing's for sure, they got themselves a good football player. How good? That's the question. And because of that question, in the first round, 32nd overall pick, quarterback out of Louisville, Lamar Jackson, for me, is a. As we move on to the third round, no second round pick because of the Lamar Jackson trade up into the first round. This next player is an enigma for me. The combine was as bad as it gets, and I think it really impacted his draft stock to the point where you're talking about possibly late first, definitely second, to now a mid third round selection here. Third round, 83rd overall selection, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, Orlando Brown. So, to me, looking at Orlando Brown, one of two things is going to take place with this guy. He's either going to be really good or he's going to be really bad. I don't think there's any in between with this guy. Either his length and his ability to stay in front of guys is going to keep him in this league and have him be a really solid NFL football player, or he's going to stink really bad and he's going to flame out of the league really fast. And I could see him doing either one of those things. I could see him eating his way out of the league. This is a huge man. He's massive, but nonetheless, 6'8", 345 pounds. I don't think he's 345. All right. Maybe he's 345. Maybe he's not. This guy looks every bit of 370. But in any event, and this was a guy that was 450 pounds at the end of his high school tenure. Okay, so you're talking about a massive man. He was going through some trauma at that point. Your dad passed away, and so I think eating probably became something that was a little bit of a comfort for him, and he blew up. He ballooned, got into shape, though, and they really did a great job at Oklahoma of getting him back into some football shape and keeping him in enough shape to keep him on the football field. He's going to have to do a lot better at controlling his weight, and the Ravens are going to have to help him with that. That being said, guy's got 35-inch arms, so we start with his measurables in terms of pros. Guy's massive, 6'8", 35-inch arms. If he gets his if he's able to get his arms onto you, if he's able to latch on, you're done. I mean, this guy's got arms for days. He's got length. It's part of the reason it was so hard to pass this guy. Now, again, speed and quickness is going to be his enemy, and if you can get some guys in front of him that have elite speed that can beat him around the edge, the only thing that may save him is his length. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but nonetheless, his measurables are top notch. You go to his anchor. I watched him in 3 different games. I watched him against Ohio State in 2017, against Texas in 2017, and against Georgia in 2017. And his anchor wasn't too bad. It wasn't great. Not every guy was able to move him. I didn't see them move him at all in the Texas game, but I did see Boza move him in the Ohio State game, and I did see Jeremiah Ledbetter, move him in the Georgia game. So you're looking at 2 situations where he was able to be bull rushed against some pretty good defensive players. So I worry about him from an anchor standpoint. If the guy in front of him has some ability to move and that gets him to thinking, I got to make sure I stay in front of this guy, and then they come with some speed to power, that could be a problem for Orlando Brown at the next level. And we all know about his inability to bench at the combine, only 14 reps of 2 1/4, which is unacceptable for a guy his size. But again, longer armed guys are going to put up less reps. Usually the guys that are putting up 40 and 35 reps of 2 1/4 in the weight room are normally short armed guys. You know, the guys that are 6 feet, 300 pounds. Those are the guys, shorter arms, able to just get it up, get it down. When you've got longer arms and you can put it up, 30, 35, 40 times, that's saying a lot. And this guy here, long arms, not very strong, just functionally strong. And at times you question, is he even that? But we'll get to that a little bit later on. Balance, he's got solid, for a guy his size, he's got really good balance. You don't see him off balance, falling on the ground, things of that nature. When he does lunge, even when he lunges, not all the way off balance. You can beat him when he lunges, but his balance is fine. He's a tough guy. Again, big guy. So I don't question his toughness. He's been through a lot from a mental standpoint with his father passing away, as well as having to put his body through a bunch of different transformations. I think he's a mentally tough and at times a physically tough guy as well. Pass blocking ability, that's where his calling card is. If he's going to survive in this league as a starting tackle, it's going to be because he can protect the quarterback. I do not see this guy as an elite run blocker. As a matter of fact, I put that down as one of his cons. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But his pass blocking is light years ahead of his run blocking. And length wins in this league. You know, I've seen guys come into this league that I thought didn't have a chance in hell at surviving, and their length ended up winning out, and they turned out to be damn good tackles in this league. And if he can find a way to get his length to win for him, if he can find a way to use his length to his advantage, he may have an NFL career that's better than most people, including myself, think is on the horizon for him. Finish, I got him as a marginal finisher, but I put it down as a pro. Against Georgia, he doesn't stay with his block, and it leads to a sack. But again, with Baker Mayfield being your quarterback and really just not knowing where the hell he's going to be from snap to snap, from second to second even, hard to really put too many of those types of sacks where you block a guy initially, Baker decides to flush the pocket, and all of a sudden your guy is able to get free and get to him, and because he didn't get rid of it, I'm not going to kill him for that. But he does stay with his blocks in the run game for the most part. It's just a matter of, can he get to his blocks in the run game effectively? Awareness, he knows who to block, when to block, does a good job of passing off guys when they're blitzing, picking up the right guy. Protection is being slid his direction. He knows who to pick up. He's aware of what's going on around him. That's not an issue for him. Recovery is one of his biggest assets because of that length that we mentioned earlier. Nick Bosa beat him around the edge. He was able to recover by pushing him up the pocket and allowing the quarterback to step up. So he's one of those guys that he can initially lose the battle but still win the war because of his length. And that recovery is going to benefit him in ways you can't imagine at the next level. Again, that's going to be one of his most integral tools that he's going to have to use in being successful, because he's going to get beat by speed and guys that can use their hands at the next level. Availability, he started every single game of his career at Oklahoma, did not miss a single start. So from an availability standpoint, we know about the best ability being availability, and he's been available his entire career. So again, another feather in his cap there for Orlando Brown while at Oklahoma. But you go from those pros to his cons. Athleticism, it was like watching paint dry, watching this guy move around on the football field. We know of his combine, 5'8", 540, one of the worst in combine history. No player has ever run a sub 640, or excuse me, no player has ever run a 40 north of 6. He came dangerously close. He's not a fast mover. As a matter of fact, I don't know why they pulled him so often at Oklahoma. Watching him pull and get in the way of the running, he literally was in the way of running backs. Now, when he would actually connect and the running back would have enough patience to wait, it would pay off dividends at times. But there were times I watched him pulling against Texas. I just wrote down extremely slow. And there's in that particular game, the running back probably would have gotten about a good 12 to 15, but he ran up the back of Orlando Brown and ended up getting tackled for a 3-yard gain instead. So I wouldn't pull him at all. You know, wide receiver screens, this guy isn't going to do much for you in that way. There's no way he's going to be able to move in enough with enough speed. He's not going to be able to move expeditiously enough to help you in any kind of setting where he needs to pull or get out wide for a screen or anything like that. He's very limited athletically. Technique, I think when defenders get into his body, he panics and gets grabby. His hands are all over the place. I see this guy having a ton of holding penalties in his future if guys can get into his body. He had a holding penalty versus Texas that negated a touchdown. That was a crucial point in the game. Texas had started to make a little bit of a comeback. Oklahoma was looking to put them away. That touchdown would have put them away. Instead, his holding penalty negated the touchdown, forced them to have to settle for a field goal, allowed Texas to later on take the lead. So he's got an issue with that. And we'll see. He rarely bends his knees. He's the quintessential heavy-legged waist bender, as my man Mike Mayock has coined the term and phrase. He doesn't bend his knees very often when in pass pro, and so there's a lot of reaching, a lot of him using his arms to defeat guys. But when you don't bend your knees, there's not a lot of flexion, there's not a lot of flexibility, and so when guys are able to get into your body, if your legs are locked out, you're going to get off balance. You're going to get driven back into the quarterback, and you see that with Orlando Brown from time to time. Redirect, it's impossible for this guy to stop and redirect 6'8", 370. I know I said 345. This guy, watch him on tape, there's no way he's 3. Now, again, he may have gotten into shape for the combine. I'm pretty sure when he shows up for Ravens training camp, this guy's going to be north of 355. I'm thinking north of 360 if you ask me. We'll see what happens. I talked about his run blocking ability. It's average at best. He's a guy that's going to get in the way. He doesn't even create movement in the run game. And again, when you're only putting up 2 1/4, 14 times, you're not going to generate a ton of movement in the run game. Pulling, like I said earlier, I don't need to reiterate this. He did have a nice job of pulling against Georgia on a kickout block for a 25-yard run, but the running back showed tremendous patience by waiting and waiting and waiting for him to get to that defender before pushing him into the defender and getting up the field. But nonetheless, look, like I said already, either this guy's going to be really good for you or he's going to be really bad. Only one way to find out, and that's to give him an opportunity. Ravens don't have a ton of talent on the offensive line as it is. So this guy's going to get an opportunity probably at right tackle. You already have your left tackle of the future on your roster in Ronnie Stanley. So if this guy can give you something at right tackle, and I think he may be able to do that at right tackle. I don't trust him at left, but I think at right tackle, he may be able to find a home in this league. We will see. But in the 3rd round, 83rd overall selection, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma, Orlando Brown is so we go 3 picks later, still in the 3rd round, 86 overall, to a guy that I was really intrigued with during the process and probably was even more impressed with him as I watched the tape. A guy that I've already broken down in the Draft Prospects 101 series, so if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of him, go there. But again, going to give you a quick synopsis of what I've seen out of this guy. And again, more talent for Flacco at a position that makes him comfortable. I'm talking about Oklahoma tight end, Mark Andrews. To me, this guy here is a much better pass catcher than even Hayden Hearst, your 1st round selection. Hearst may be a little bit smoother as an athlete, and to me, and even though they ran the same 40 time, I think Andrews might be the better route runner of the two. I think he's got better hands than the two. He's just not a blocker at all. Okay, so that's something you're either gonna have to develop this guy into, or you're just gonna say, to hell with that. When we put you in the game, we're looking to throw you the football. Either way, he's going to be a mismatch nightmare for opposing teams. And again, Flacco's going to be in heaven because when he's got tight ends to get the football to, Flacco's at his best. You not only now add Hayden Hearst, but now you add Mark Andrews into the mix. These guys can stretch the field vertically. They can win in the short to intermediate game, separate, especially Andrews. His separation is crazy because you look at him, you look at his body type, you say, oh, he's not going to break dudes off, but he's breaking dudes off and he's getting open. I'm really excited about this pick for Joe Flacco and for the Ravens moving forward. And so I love the fact that they doubled down on a position that hasn't worked out for them in the past, but in Flacco's early career when he was at his best, the tight end position was one that he leaned on incredibly. And this is another guy that's going to give him the confidence that I can zing it to this guy, just like Baker Mayfield did in some crucial, critical 3rd down situations. And this guy's going to come through, win for me, and make plays. And so in the 3rd round, 86th overall selection, Oklahoma tight end, back-to-back Oklahoma picks. My man Mark Andrews is... What would be a Baltimore Ravens draft without an Alabama player being selected? As a matter of fact, there were two in this draft, which fits right around what Ozzie Newsome loves to do, an ex-Alabama alum. Nonetheless, this is a guy that comes in, going to help you at a position of need. And so in the 4th round, 118th overall selection, cornerback out of Alabama, Anthony Avery is the selection. So 5'11", buck 83 stands Anthony Avery. Here's a guy with NFL bloodlines. His uncle is Bryant McKinney, the ex-Minnesota Vikings longtime tackle. This is a guy that played some ball at Alabama, started the last 2 years, and played a little bit in 15 as well. So guy coming in with some experience. You look at what this guy brings to the table. I watched him in 4 games, 2 from 16, 2 from 17, against Arkansas and Clemson in 16. And, man, they went after his ass. I mean, they targeted him mercilessly in that 2016 championship game in which Bama went down to Clemson. Mike Williams and Deion Kane tore Anthony Avery a new asshole. And so they saw something in Avery that they could attack. Maybe it was just his size. I mean, Kane is 6'3", Mike Williams is 6'3", and they went after him, and they had a ton of success. He was much better versus Clemson in 17, and also watched him against Georgia in 2017 as well. So here's a guy with 4.36 40 speed. That is blazing fast, but he doesn't play to that speed. I didn't see 4.36. I saw maybe 4.44. So I question whether he actually runs that fast on the field during game day, but the guy can run. And whether it's 4.36 or 4.44, it's fast as hell. So the guy can run. That's one thing. He's got athleticism. He's got some quicks. He's got the ability to start and stop. Good acceleration. That's an understatement when the guy's running a sub 4.4. Good change of direction and agility. These aren't issues for him. Okay, the issue with him is size. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Anticipation and awareness. He'll drive on slants and underneath routes. That can get him in trouble as well because you can set him up for a double move. I've seen that done to him on tape as well, but I love his aggressiveness on the underneath routes. Nothing cheap underneath. You're going to work for everything that you get, and he's one of those guys that will drive on those slants and those speed cuts and things of that nature when you're trying to get it out of your hand quickly. Locate and contest LLC, and he's okay at that. He's not terrible at that. I have it down as a positive. It could have easily been a negative because, and you'll see that he doesn't have a ton of career interceptions, and a lot of that is to do with the fact that he doesn't locate the ball early enough, but he does look back at times. There are times where he doesn't look back and picks up some PIs and things of that nature. Tackling and willingness to tackle. He's one of these feisty, smaller corners at 5'11", buck 83. Not the biggest guy in the world, but not afraid to put his helmet and face mask in the fray. And gotta love that. Gotta love his feistiness and his aggressiveness when regarding tackling. Man coverage is good. I think he's better in zone when he sees what's going on in front of him and is able to keep everything in front of him. When you ask him to get into some man situations, back shoulder fades become things that are available to the opposition if that's what you want. And you saw Clemson in 2016, for instance, go after him in that setting. You saw Georgia try the same thing and have a little bit of success there as well. So, again, his size plays into that when you're talking from a man-to-man standpoint. I think in zone, he's a little bit more aware, able to kind of counteract when teams are trying to do that to him because he's able to see what's going on a little bit better and react accordingly. Blitzing capabilities, I saw him against Georgia. If you want to see this guy blitzing, that championship game versus Georgia, he was on full display as a blitzer, which I love because I think his position at the next level probably going to be the slot. With his size, most likely he's going to have to kick inside. And you did see him work the slot a little bit, but his ability to blitz, he had a sack on a blitz. He also had a tackle for loss in that Georgia game as a blitzer. Those are qualities that I want to see from a guy that I think is going to ultimately have to kick inside at the next level anyway. So love his ability to blitz right now as it stands. And then versatility. Guy played slot and out wide as a boundary corner, and he was a core special teamer at Alabama, which I think he's going to have to also do early in his career in Baltimore. So those are all pros. You look at his cons, measurables obviously stands out. I think a lot of the plays that he gave up, a lot of the penalties that he was able to amass at Alabama came off the strength of him just being a smaller guy that teams picked on. So you could go at Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's much bigger, or you could go after Anthony Avery. And teams chose Anthony Avery 9 times out of 10. So his measurables, not the best in terms of a boundary corner. If he's in a slot, that's just fine. 5'11", $183, and he'll probably get a little bit bigger once he gets with this Ravens football team. That's fine in the slot. But for a boundary corner, that's not going to be good enough, especially when you watch him on tape struggle with guys with size. Ball skills. Had a chance for a pick versus Georgia. Ball went right through his hands, mistimed his jump. He's not comfortable attacking the football. Only 1 career interception, which tells you everything you need to know about this guy as a ball hawk or lack thereof. I don't love his ball skills. I don't think he is comfortable making plays on the football. And, again, his size doesn't help him in that regard either. So those are the things that make me a little uncomfortable with Anthony Avery. I'd like him to look and locate and contest a little bit better, but I think he does that enough for me to not make it a con, but it could have easily been one. I saw him pick up a couple of PIs because he just didn't look back for the football, ran right into the body of the receiver and prevented him from catching the football. I saw some instances where he might have had a chance to make a play on the football, never looked back to locate it, just played the man instead of playing the ball. So he's got some work to do, but from a skill set standpoint, the guy's got everything you're looking for outside of size. And I question his ball skills. So we'll see what happens with him at the next level. But in the 4th round, 118th overall selection, a corner out of Alabama, Anthony Avery for me is a As we continue on this marathon that the Ravens called their 2018 NFL Draft, 4 picks later in the 4th round, 122nd pick overall, linebacker out of UCLA, Kenny Young is the selection. So here's a guy in Kenny Young, 6'1", 236, out of UCLA, 3-year starter. High production. This is a guy that they counted on, and he made plays for them. But all in all, he was just solid. Just a solid linebacker. And to be honest with you, that's all I see. I don't see a playmaker. I don't see a difference maker. I just see a solid guy, someone that could easily be on an NFL roster for the next 8 to 10 years as a core special teamer and a guy that will give you some snaps as a starter if need be. I could see this guy starting the first 4 out of 6 years of his career and then being just a journeyman, backup, quality guy to have on your roster. Doesn't stand out in any one facet of the game, but his measurables, he's what today's NFL linebacker looks like in terms of inside linebacker, 6'1", 236. Would you like him to be bigger? Sure. But really, the NFL isn't producing big linebackers anymore. They're looking to try to match speed. You know, the tight ends are getting faster. The running backs are getting shiftier. Quarterbacks are even a little bit more mobile these days. And so linebackers have to acquiesce. And so guys are smaller. And so he kind of fits into what today's NFL linebacker looks like at 6'1", 236. His speed at 4.6 flat, that's good NFL linebacker speed. I thought he would be faster. When I saw the 4.6 initially, I'm thinking this guy's going to be flying around the football field. I saw him on a reverse versus Colorado, have the angle. I'm thinking, okay, this reverse is dead in the water because Kenny Young's got a bead on it, and he just couldn't get there. He was kind of stuck in the mud. Again, he could have been tired. I don't recall what time of the game it was, but I just expected him to get there, and he didn't. So sometimes I don't even think he plays to that 4.6 40 speed, but I've seen times where he does, so it is there. Athleticism, he's a really good athlete. Acceleration, redirect, these are all things that he's very solid at. Taking on blocks, he doesn't shy away from contact. He's not shying away from lead blockers, guards, centers, fullbacks, tight ends. He's not afraid of taking on a block. Is he getting off that block? Whole nother discussion that we'll have here in a second. Tackling ability, for the most part, this guy was a tackling machine at UCLA. So when he gets there, he's going to get you on the ground, whether he's got to shoot your cuffs, he's got to wrap you, hold on for dear life until the cavalry comes. He's going to make a play if he gets there to the ball carrier. So for the most part, his tackling, not an issue while at UCLA. Zone coverage, I think he's solid there. I watched him against Stanford, and I watched him in 3 games versus Arizona State, Stanford, and Colorado, all in 2017. I watched him on a dragger across the middle in zone coverage against Stanford, just blow up the tight end. I love it because tight ends within the 5-yard restriction area, he's running a crossing route, looking to really confuse the defense and create separation, and he just blows him up and knocks him into the other receiver that was coming across the formation, running a dragger again, looking to confuse and create separation. And his physicality, seeing this guy running this crossing route and blowing him up, knocked the other receiver off his path as well, 2-for-1 special, and quarterback had nowhere to go with the football because he was waiting for one of those guys to come free, and so he had to eat it. And so I love that. Love that awareness of what's going on in front of you, and I like him in zone coverage. Didn't really see him in man. I couldn't even give him a score for his man coverage ability because I didn't see him really be asked to play a ton of man coverage at UCLA. He has range. Versus Colorado, I saw him show some range, even though I was disappointed with him on that reverse that he wasn't able to get to. Against ASU, Kalen Ballage was running outside on a wide off-tackle play, and he was able to sniff him out and get to him for a 1-yard loss. So the guy does have range. All right, when he's clean, and let me reiterate this right now. Let me say this, and I'm going to reiterate this right now. When he's clean, he's a problem. He's going to get to the football and make a tackle. When he's got bodies on him, that's where this guy becomes invisible. So let's talk about that right now as we get to his cons. Awareness. I do not love his awareness. I gave him praise for awareness in zone coverage. I do not love his awareness as a linebacker in the run game. He was hesitant, and I think he's one of these guys that's hesitant to shoot his gun. He wants to see it before he reacts. So against Arizona State, I thought he was hesitant a number of times in that game. On a scramble versus ASU, he runs past the quarterback. Maybe his responsibility was the pitch man, but it just seemed like the quarterback was right there. He's the man with the ball. There were other defenders that could have taken the running back if he decided to pitch it late. He just ran right past the quarterback, who then picked up 10 yards on the play. What are you doing? Go get the man with the ball. See man, see ball, go get man with ball. But then against Colorado, he recognized that they were running a fake field goal, blew it up. So there's good Kenny Young, there's bad Kenny Young. In terms of awareness, slipping and shedding blocks, he just doesn't do it. He doesn't disengage from blockers enough for me. You'll see the rare occasion where he's able to do it. I might have seen 20 plays where he was engaged with a blocker and he may have gotten off those blocks twice. Once he's engaged, he's done. You keep this guy clean and he's going to make tackles. There's a reason why this guy led UCLA in tackles 2 of the past 3 years. Because if this guy is clean, he's getting to ball carriers. When he's not, he's not. He was pancake versus Stanford. I mean, just put on his ass. Like I said, I don't like him when he's contacted. But all in all, he's a guy that you want out there as a chase and run linebacker. I think he needs to be a little bit more instinctual. I think he lacks instincts at times. But you keep him clean. You got guys up front that can occupy bodies and keep this guy clean. He's going to make plays. But then again, what linebacker in the league is better when he isn't clean? So I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know, but the good ones in this league, even when they're not clean, still find ways to make plays. Kenny Young isn't one of those types of players in my estimation. In the 4th round, 122nd pick overall, linebacker out of UCLA. Kenny Young for me is a As we move to the next 4th rounder, another 4th round pick for the Ravens, 132nd overall. This one is a really fascinating pick. I'm intrigued because this is a big position of need and a guy that I think gives you something that you've lacked in Baltimore for quite some time here in New Mexico State wide receiver, Jaleel Scott. So the Ravens haven't had this type of receiver in quite some time. Bashad Perriman was supposed to be this type of guy for you with a lot more speed, but 6'5", 218, guy's huge. When you see him, he looks the part of a 6'5 receiver. And the best part is he plays the part of a 6'5 receiver. He'll go up and go get the football. The one thing I can't stand is guys with size that doesn't play to their size. Well, he's not one of those types of guys. Measurables off the charts at 6'5", 218. So that's a huge pro. Hands. Strong hands, I got in my notes, makes a ton of contested catches. You got to like that because I don't know if this guy's going to be able to separate with the best of them at the next level. So he's going to maybe be asked to make a ton of tight, contested, tight window catches. He will let the ball get into his body at times. But even then, he's able to secure it and come down with it. So, look, I don't have a problem with body catches as long as you catch it. I only have a problem with you catching the football with your body when you don't catch the football when you let it hit your body. So, I don't give a damn how you catch it as long as you catch it. And for the most part, Jaleel Scott, when the football is thrown to him, he catches it for the most part. Speed, 4.56 for a guy that size, that's really good speed. That's a really good time for a guy that's 6'5", 218. Route running, it's okay. You know, I saw him run some solid routes. Never floored me with his route running, but again, at 6'5", 218, I didn't expect him to floor me with his route running. It's hard for guys to get in and out of breaks, make sharp cuts, change of direction when you're that big. It just is. Physicality. For a big guy, and again, what I want to see from a bigger receiver is a guy that plays like a bigger receiver. He does that. His physicality and his toughness goes over the middle versus Troy, takes a shot, elevates for the football over the middle of the field, exposes his body, takes a hellacious shot, slow to get up, but he holds on to the rock, and he doesn't miss any plays. So, again, guy shows toughness, willing to do the dirty work, go over the middle, make the tough catches. Run after the catch, it's okay. I got it down as a positive, but he's not juking anybody. But he will get yards after the catch if given an opportunity to do so. They threw him some hitches and some bubbles at New Mexico State, and he was able to do some things with those. So he does make plays when given an opportunity to do. Leaping ability and high pointing the football, this is one of his strongest attributes at 6'5". I've got a ton of different instances where this guy was able to go up for the football. I got him versus Troy on a touchdown going up and elevating for the football. I've got him high pointing the football versus Texas State. I've got him high pointing the football versus Arkansas, waits for the deep ball to come to him. That's a bad situation there where he waited for a deep ball to come to him. And this was the first game I watched, so I was a little put off by that. I was a little perturbed. But that was the one and only time I saw him wait for the football to come to him. It was knocked away by the defender because he didn't go up and extend and elevate for the ball. He didn't do that again, though. As a matter of fact, later in that Arkansas game, he goes up and gets it on a deep post for a touchdown, and that's what I want to see from him. And so there were many more instances of good Jaleel Scott going up for the football than bad Jaleel waiting for the football to come to him. So he will go up and make plays on the football. His catch radius is ridiculous because he's 6'5", long arms, and he does leap and go get it. There are times where he'll leap to catch it with his body, but most times he's leaping to catch it with his hands. Ball tracking versus Texas State on a touchdown, on a deep ball down the field. He caught a nice back shoulder deep ball where he had to track it, get 2 feet in. And then in that same Texas State game on a deep ball, was able to get behind the defender. Safety's coming over. He gets there just late. Jaleel Scott able to track it in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. So in that Texas State game, if you're looking for him to track the football, that's probably your best game to see him do some work tracking the ball down while in the air. He competes as a blocker. I was impressed. Again, 6'5", I want you to block. And I think he competes as a blocker. So I wasn't disappointed. I thought I would be disappointed because sometimes you expect bigger guys to block and they just don't. He actually competed as a blocker. So that was good. Dependability, clutchness, I put it down as a pro, even though late versus Utah State on a 3rd down, they could have really used this grab. It was low. It was a tough play. But you're my guy. You're my playmaker. I expect you to make this play. And he wasn't able to come up with the low ball late in that ball game. So can you trust him in situations? I think so. I saw him make a lot of tough catches in some 3rd down situations. That was one where I would have loved to have seen him come down with the football, but he didn't. Versatility, I put him down as a versatile guy, even though he's a boundary wide receiver. You know, he's a out wide receiver. You know, so he's not a guy that's gonna play in a slot for the most part. So you know what you're getting here. Sideline awareness. I talked about that great back shoulder catch versus Texas State where he had to adjust on the sidelines. Also had a game time touchdown, acrobatic catch versus Utah State. They had to review it. Still got 1 foot down as he juggled and bobbled the football. It was a tough catch, tough play, heavily contested, came down with it and tied the game versus Utah State. And so sideline awareness, he's got it. And I watched him in 4 games versus Arkansas, versus Utah State, versus Texas State, versus Troy, all in 2017. So you go from those pros to his cons. Quickness, suddenness, he's not going to separate from guys using quickness and suddenness. It's just long strides, hard for him to break down and dupe guys. And you know, so he's not going to separate. That's why I had to make a ton of contested catches. He's not going to separate from guys, and his quickness it's just not there. Acceleration, he's not running away from guys. He's a build-up speed guy, and even then, he's still not pulling away from people. So his acceleration, I don't think is going to scare anybody at the next level. He will sneak up on you now. You fall asleep behind the wheel, he will eat your cushion up, get even, and then leave you, but it's rare. If you've got any kind of speed, you'll be able to stay in his hip pocket. And finally, his production. This is a guy in 2 years at New Mexico State, 14 touchdowns over 2 years, 9 of them coming in 2017, 1,362 career yards receiving, 1,079 of those coming in 2017, and 99 career receptions, 76 of which came in 2017. So what I'm basically telling you is he had 1 year of true production. That's a problem, but I will say this, that 1 year of production was in 2017. I think his best football is yet to come, which has me excited, which makes me say that in the 4th round, in the 4th round, 132nd pick overall, wide receiver Jaleel Scott out of New Mexico State, at a position of need, giving the Ravens something they've lacked, is a I'm really excited about that pick for the Ravens, and I think he can do some big things if he can just stay healthy. As we move on, speaking of health and a guy that can do some big things, 5th round, 162nd pick overall, back-to-back receivers. Ravens double dipping at the receiver store. They go to Euclid once again, this time snatching up wide receiver Jordan Lasley. So here's an intriguing guy, one that I watched very closely because in order to watch tape on Josh Rosen, you couldn't help but notice number 2 making play after play after play for Josh Rosen. There were the occasional drops in there that was a little off-putting, but for the most part, this guy made plays. And so I'll say this right off the top. This guy strikes me as a Torrey Smith type of player for you. Guy that can come in. I don't think he's the one-trick pony that Torrey Smith ultimately became. I think he's got a little bit more versatility to his game, can run the underneath stuff. But he's got the explosiveness. He's not as fast as Torrey Smith is, but he's got that kind of capability to take the top off the defense and make plays down the field. And that's what he was for UCLA. Big play guy, catch a slant or a skinny post and just murk on the defense. And he has that ability to do that. So measurables at 6'1", 203. It's quality size for an NFL wide receiver. His hands, they're solid. And he makes more catches than drops, obviously, but big drop versus Memphis late. Drop versus Texas A&M late in that historic comeback in the first week of 2017. But made up for it with some big plays in that game as well. Speed, 4.5 flat. Guy can run. Sometimes I think he even plays faster than that 4.5 40 may indicate. Acceleration, you watch him versus USC, catch a ball and just take off. You know, run by some defenders on some deep balls in that football game, made plays. Stanford catches a slant and runs for a touchdown. Catches another slant, almost gets away. So this guy has some ability to accelerate. Route running ability, it's solid. He can shake free, he can make some plays, he can get open, he can win. Physicality or run after the catch. Talked about the Stanford game. Had 2 catches where he was able to run after the catch, make plays, one going for a touchdown. Same thing versus K-State. Nice play on a 3rd down where he's able to sit down in zone coverage on a 3rd down, catch the football, get up the field on like a 3rd and 6 and pick up about 12. And then also had another catch where he's able to run away down the sideline, wide receiver screen, gets a block, takes it off down the sideline for a touchdown. So this guy has some ability after the catch. Catch radius. He's got solid catch radius. As you can see him in his art here, catching the football, going outside of his frame, making a little bit of a catch in the end zone. That one was against USC. Got some ball tracking ability. 3 deep balls versus USC. I mean, he was destroying the USC defense in that game. One called back due to penalty, but he had his way versus USC, and he can do that. He can get behind defenders using his speed. Dependability and clutchness. I dinged him a couple of times for some drops in some crucial situations, but he can make some plays for you. I wouldn't go away from him in a 3rd and 6 situation. He's a guy that I would look to target in those situations. And it's not a situation of hands. It's just lack of concentration sometimes. Trying to make a play before he's got the football. He can eliminate that from his game. He'll be fine. Versatility. Guy can play in the slot. He can play out wide. And then also, he can go get you a deep ball. You know, not everybody's equipped to go get you a deep ball, to track it in the air, to run by guys, go get the football. He can do that. So there's a little bit of versatility here with Jordan Lasley. Sideline awareness, has the ability to find the sidelines, get his feet down in bounds. And so those are all pros when talking Jordan Lasley. You look at some cons. Here's a guy with a little bit of baggage that comes with him. 2 arrests in 2016, one for possession of alcohol and the other for presenting a fake ID. Look, those are all immaturity things. Those I wipe clean. The one in 17 where he suspended 3 games, that's the one I worry about for breaking unspecified team rules. Obviously, you're a habitual offender at that point. You get suspended for 3 games. He said that suspension made him understand just how much football meant to him. Hopefully his transgressions are behind him, but he's a guy that's going to need to be better. Only 8 reps of 2 1/4, so not a physically strong guy, which takes us to our next 2 cons. Physicality and toughness. He's not a guy that wants any part of physicality nor toughness. Not looking to take on anybody as after the catch. He's looking to get down. I don't have a problem with that. You know, preserve yourself. But in any event, He's not the guy that I'm looking to make plays over the middle of the football field and take a shot. That's going to have to be Jaleel Scott. That's not going to be Jordan Lasley. He has no problems working the outside the numbers, on the boundaries. He doesn't want any part of the in between the hashes, middle of the field action. He doesn't want that. Leaping ability, high pointing the football, not his strong suit. Not his strong suit. He can do that, but that's not something you need to ask Jordan Lasley to do on a consistent basis. Blocking, no. Again, not a physical guy, really doesn't want much of the contact that comes with football. So if he could avoid that, then that includes blocking. He's looking to avoid that. And then production, 69 grabs for 12, 64, and 9 touchdowns and 17. But you look at his numbers from the years previous to that, not much to speak of. So here's a guy with 1 year of heavy production. Some of that had to do with the quarterback position. Rosen has been hurt his entire UCLA career. So that does affect the guys around him. But nonetheless, him getting in trouble, some incidents off the field, him not being focused, not having the quarterback production, all of that all of those things are contributing factors. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for your production. And just wasn't a ton of it until 2017. So 1 year of production. Same thing I said about Jaleel Scott. His best football is ahead of him. That's very rewarding. That's very comforting to know. We're drafting a guy that's on the ascension track. He's getting better. His best year of football wasn't in 2015 or 2016. Came in 2017. So you feel like you're getting a guy on the rise that's starting to get it. And so this is a guy that can help. And so I like what he brings to the table. I like the fact that he can take the top off the defense. I worry about some of the transgressions off the field and his maturity. And I worry about some of the drops. And because of those things, in the 5th round, 162nd pick overall, wide receiver out of UCLA, Jordan Lasley for me is a As we continue to move on, 6th round, 190th pick overall, Texas safety DeShawn Elliott is the selection. So here's a guy that I really like, man. I think this guy's got immense potential. He's physical, will put a hat on someone and light them up. Has a little bit of coverage skills, really versatile guy. And really the biggest knock on DeShawn Elliott, got ball skills, made a ton of plays, is his health. Can he stay healthy? If he can do that, this is a guy that I think could have an impact on this Ravens roster. As you look at him, 6'1", 210, so that's good NFL safety size. Guy's got speed at 4.5, 840, so he can run. So you can ask him to do some things around the line of scrimmage, but then away from the line of scrimmage, which he was a free safety at Texas. You can ask him to play away from the line of scrimmage and ask him to get to the football to make some plays. Athleticism, he possesses that along with acceleration. You see that him getting to the football, this guy closing some ground and eating up space. I watched him against Iowa State just devour some guys out in space, against USC, closing the distance. I also watched him against Oklahoma State, all of those games in 2017. So this guy has some acceleration, change of direction, and agility. That comes with the package as well when you're talking athleticism. Anticipation and awareness. This is something that I think he needs to be a little bit better at. And this is, I gave him a positive mark here, but this could easily be a knock on him because for as athletically gifted and as good as I think he can be, this is one of the things that I think is holding him back from being possibly a 4th round pick instead of a 6th round pick, along with the health concerns with this guy. Anticipation and awareness. Here's the good with him. A hit versus Iowa in the end zone. All right, they throw a pass in the end zone. He's there. He sees it. He anticipates and lights the guy up, dislodges man from football, and creates an incompletion. And Iowa State only gets a field goal out of the situation. That's huge. That's big time. That's a 4-point difference. But then against Oklahoma State, Mason Rudolph is staring down, and he's single high safety here. Mason Rudolph is staring down the left side of the field. I mean, just absolutely eyeballing the left side. You know he's going deep to the left side of the field, and yet he doesn't react until Mason Rudolph commits to throwing the football. And while that's a good thing because guys at the next level will try to manipulate you and move you, you're not Malik Hooker, okay? You're not going to get there with enough time to make a play on the football if you don't react to what the quarterback is doing. If the quarterback is telling you I'm going left, you need to start shading over that way because you're not Malik Hooker. You don't have the makeup speed and the ability to cover the ground necessary to go make a play. And so the ball gets there, but it was incomplete out of bounds. He could have gotten there earlier had he reacted to what he's seen. And so that's the anticipation and the awareness that you want to see from him. He's lacking that right now. You look at his ball skills. Guy had 2 interceptions versus both Iowa State and USC in back-to-back weeks early in the season for Texas. Ended up with 6 interceptions in 2017, 9 in his career. So the guy has great ball skills. He's just one of those guys, right place, right time. You watch some of those picks, they're overthrows, and he was just in the right place. But when he's around the football and the ball caroms, like the pick he had against USC, where the ball is tipped off the hands of the receiver, he scoops it up off the turf and takes it for a touchdown. He makes plays too. I don't want to take anything away from him. Tackling and his willingness to tackle. He's physical. He's looking to make tackles. Love that about him. Man-to-man coverage. You see some of the good things about him. Nice coverage up the sideline on a wheel route versus Iowa State. That's beautiful. He can be had in man coverage, though. Watched him in some situations give up some things underneath. Zone coverage. Talked about the hit versus Iowa State in the end zone. I think he's more of a guy that you trust in zone than you do man at this point. Blitzing capabilities. He came on a blitz off the edge versus Iowa State and was beautifully timed up, well disguised. So that's something else I think you get with this guy. I think he's your traditional, and I put down for versatility, field coverage, range, all of that stuff is good. But for versatility, I think he's what today's NFL rock and roll safety looks like. And what all that means is a guy that can rock and roll, play both free and strong safety equally well. So you're not telling the defense, okay, this guy's down in the box, so I got man-to-man, or I got single high, or I got no safety, I got zero coverage because this guy's down and he's there free. Nope, he's playing strong safety this time, and the other safety is down, but he could easily rock and roll back to free safety. And just 2 plays ago, he was the strong safety. So he's got the versatility. And in today's NFL, you're looking for guys that can rock and roll at the safety position and play both free and strong. And I think DeShawn Elliott is a guy that can do both. So we go from those pros to his cons. Here's a guy that I look at and locate and contest the football in man coverage situations. Don't know if that's always a strong suit for him. Again, we're talking a safety here. So I told you, I think he's better in man where he sees everything happening versus, or excuse me, zone where he sees everything, everything's in front of him. I like him more around the line of scrimmage than I do away from the line of scrimmage. I think he's more of an asset. I got to watch this guy as a free and as a strong, and I like him underneath. I like him as a blitzer. I like him around the line of scrimmage where he's aggressive and physical. I think he's better as a strong than he is a free, and he plays with a reckless abandon. And I love that, but it's also a detriment, which is our next pro and the biggest, or next con and the biggest one with DeShawn Elliott. Missed 8 out of 37 collegiate games. This guy's a junior, so only 37 career games at Texas, and he missed a little over a fifth of them. Only 2 of them came in the last 2 seasons, but still. You're talking about a guy that's had some injuries that have derailed him at times. 4 forced fumbles, though, 3 of them coming in 2017, 9 career interceptions, 6 coming in 17, 2.5 career sacks. This is a guy that can do a lot of good things. And I think if he's healthy, he's not only going to contribute. It wouldn't shock me if this guy's starting sooner rather than later and a key contributor to this Ravens football team. In the 6th round, 190th pick overall, Texas safety DeShawn Elliott for me is So for as good as some of these picks by Ozzie Newsome has been, this next guy I'm just really not high on at all. I didn't see it. I know why they made the selection. Doesn't make me love it anymore. In the 6th round, 212th overall pick, Wagner, offensive tackle, Greg Senat is the selection. Watched this guy in a couple of games, most notably Western Michigan in 2017. I'm not gonna lie to you. I see a very raw prospect, a guy that needs a lot of work, a guy that I don't expect to make this roster, a guy that you put on your practice squad if you like him enough as an athlete to work with and see if you can develop him, but he's just not ready to play tackle at the NFL level. That being said, 6'6", 302, 35-inch arm. So right there, you see why they love this guy. 19 reps of 2 1/4. Again, not the strongest guy in the world, but with long arms, like I mentioned with Orlando Brown. It's not always the easiest to get it up a ton of times with long arms. But just to put it in perspective, your 5'11", $183 corner out of Alabama, Anthony Avery, put up 2 1/4, 14 times. Your tackle in the 3rd round, Orlando Brown, put it up 15 times. And your tackle in the 6th round put it up 19 times. So, for what it's worth. But this is an ex-basketball player that in his 2nd year in college decided, maybe I should play football. And went and asked the coaches, hey, can I come play football? They tried him out at tight end, and they said, you know what, we'll move you to tackle. So, only 2 years of starting experience, at Wagner, 22 games straight, but he's raw as hell. All right, but let's get to his pros. Measurables, 6'6", 302, 35-inch arms. Check. Athleticism, ex-basketball player. So you know he can move. Check. Redirect. He actually is able to change directions pretty fluidly for a guy his size. Again, ex-basketball background. Check. Toughness. He's not soft. Even though he's an ex-basketball player, he's not soft. So that's not something that, you worry about with him. Recovery, because he's got long arms, even when he loses, he can still salvage the rep. He can still salvage that particular snap because he's got longer arms, so he's able to recover. And even when he pulls, he doesn't necessarily hit his target all the time, but he does get out in front of a play because he's athletically gifted. So you see that with him as well. But that's the extent of his pros. A lot of cons here. His technique is horrible. He doesn't mirror guys very well, doesn't square up players. A lot of guys are able to beat him off the snap. He does a lot of guessing before the snap. All right, I'm going to guess that this guy's going to go this way. If he guesses right, he might win that rep. If he guesses wrong, guy's going to beat him. I saw him lose too many times on run plays where he's beat to the inside, where the guy's going. You know where the run play is going. You know where your back is going. You should be able to stay in front of a guy. Doesn't use his length well enough right now. He's extremely raw. He doesn't use his length to his advantage. He's letting guys get into his body way too often. Run plays, pass protecting. He's got a lot of work to do. His anchor isn't great because he allows guys to get into his body too often. His balance, he's on the ground way too much for my liking right now. Pass blocking and run blocking ability are below NFL standards for me right now. He doesn't finish plays the way that I want him to. Doesn't have a nasty streak. That's where that basketball mentality kind of kicks in. He's not aware. Guys are running by him, blitzing, and he's not sure who to pick up. Again, not a lot here for you, man. I don't know what you want me to say other than this is a practice squad guy in my estimation. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see Greg Senat contributing anything right away in the 6th round, 212th overall selection. Wagner, offensive tackle. Greg Senat for me is, as you could imagine, now, here's a late round guy that I do see producing for you, that I do see not only making your roster, but having an impact down the road. 6th round, 215th overall pick. Alabama interior offensive lineman, Bradley Bozeman. is the selection. (6'5", 296 pounds. He got down to 296 for his workout at Alabama's Pro Day. He said, look, this is the only time you will ever see me at this weight. So he's more 316, which is what he played at Alabama, than he is 296. But for the intents and purposes of the last time he was weighed, that's what I have him down as. But he's really a 315 pound or so interior offensive lineman, so good size there. 225 pounds. He repped it out 27 times. Voted a team captain as a senior on the Alabama football team. 31 consecutive starts over a 2-year period while at Bama. So this guy is highly decorated coming out of the Alabama program under Nick Saban. Here's a guy, measurables. That's a pro at 6'5", 315 pounds. Technique, I think he's sound with his technique. Sometimes when he looks to extend his arm and get that one arm bar out there, that pole, sometimes he can be beaten. I saw some guys get him with the latch and snatch technique when I watched him, and I watched him in 3 games versus Vanderbilt, Georgia, and Florida State in 2017. I thought that he had some issues in that first game of the season versus Florida State versus Derek Nottie. I thought Nottie was able to get him with that latch and snatch technique a couple of times and beat him up the field. So there's a little bit of a technical flaw there, but the guy is pretty sound from a technique standpoint. Anchors well. You're not going to see this guy getting bull rushed very often. Solid balance, not on the ground very often. Not off balance. Does a good job of staying in front of his man. His redirect isn't the worst. It's not the greatest, but it's good enough for it to be a pro. Toughness, he's a tough guy. All right, didn't miss a game over the last 2 years, and we know Alabama plays well into December, into January every year. So 31 consecutive starts. Guy's a tough guy. Run and pass blocking are equally good for me. I see a guy that is quality in both areas. Could he finish and be a little bit more nastier? Sure. I think he's a guy that makes the initial block and at times will stay engaged, but there are times where guys will be able to disengage from him after the initial block is made and he doesn't sustain, but still good enough for it to qualify as a pro. Awareness, he knows who to block, when to block. He's a guy that can bark out line calls. He's a guy that can set protections, very smart. He's aware, knows who's coming up the A-gap, can initially start off as a double teamer, but then come off and pick up the late blitzer. So very aware at the line of scrimmage, knows who to block. Spatial awareness, same thing. Out in space as a puller. He knows how to get off the double team, get to the second level, climb to the second level, get to guys. He's looking for work. Heads on a swivel, starts out with the double team, then will go and find another guy. Does a good job of, oh, I have nobody to block. I'm going to go find some work. Snap to set is solid. Gets the job done. Double teams really well. Really good on the double team. And availability, like I said, 31 consecutive starts over the last 2 years. His cons essentially stem from lack of athleticism. Not the greatest athlete in the world. That's why he dropped 20 pounds for the Alabama Pro Day, because at 316, he wasn't going to move as well as he did at 296. And even at 296, still ran a 5.43. Okay? So, again, not the greatest athlete in the world. Not going to wow you when he pulls. Okay? But when he pulls, he does damage. All right? But you're going to have to wait for him to get there to do the damage. All in all, I'm going to tell you this right now, and I mean this when I say this. It wouldn't shock me if this guy not only made this roster, but is a 10-year starter in this league. He's the kind of guy that strikes me similar to Wagner, who just left you for greener pastures this offseason. A very unheralded guy, undervalued. I think Wagner was undrafted, if I'm not mistaken, or a late draft pick. But a guy that, and this is, Bradley Bozeman is an example of why teams are hesitant to draft interior offensive linemen early in the draft, because you can get quality 10-year starters late in the draft or as undrafted football players. We just saw the guard for the Carolina Panthers become the highest paid guard in the league this offseason as an undrafted football player. We see it all the time with these particular interior positions more so than any other position in football. And Bradley Bozeman is a guy that I could see 4 years down the road getting a big contract from either the Ravens or some other team because he's a good football player that's going to play 10 years in this league. That's just my humble opinion. In the 6th round, 215th overall selection, Alabama center Bradley Bozeman is a And finally, this marathon draft comes to an end in the 7th round, 238th overall selection. Ferris State defensive end Zach Seiler is the selection. So Zach Seiler is 6'6", 290. So right there, the guy comes off at you with tremendous size. And he did something that's rare for a Division II athlete. He rolled the dice and came out early. You don't see that with young guys coming out of a small school very often because you need all the exposure, all the playing time you can get. But his dominance over the brief period of his career forced him to come out early, and it was a good decision because he got drafted, and the guy was seeing double and triple teams, 21 sacks over the last 2 years, 14 of them coming in 2016 before everyone figured out how good he was, and the next year teams were like, we're not going to let Zach Seiler beat us, and so we're going to double and triple team him if we have to. So only 7 sacks the previous year or the following year in 2017, but 31 reps of 2 1/4. And this is a guy with long limbs at 6'6", so you can tell this guy's strong. Good athlete, 4'7", 840. So measurables, athleticism, hand usage. This guy wins with his hand usage, and it's just raw strength. A lot of his sacks, you don't see this guy putting moves on people. You see him bull rushing guys, rip that latch and snatch technique. He's got that down pat. Every now and again, you'll get some swim action, but for the most part, he's just looking to win with quickness and brute force. Awareness. He's very aware with ball carriers coming his way, getting to the ball carriers. Point of attack physicality, this guy is off the charts strong at the point of attack. Like I said, 31 reps of 2 1/4 speaks volumes. Ability versus the run. He's exceptional versus the run. Pass rushing ability. We'll come back to that. I actually have that down as a con. Tackling ability. He tackles. Motor is good. Endurance is good. Impact on the game was exceptional at Ferris State. He made plays, forced fumbles, got sacks. He was a catalyst for their success at Ferris State. But you go to his cons. Redirect. He's not the best. He's a big, strong, physical guy. Doesn't redirect. He's a little stiff at times in terms of movement skills. Pass rushing ability, you say 21 sacks over the last 2 years, 14 in 2016, 7 last year. What do you mean he can't rush the passer? He doesn't have any moves, doesn't have a move Rolodex. He's pretty bland. I'll tell you right now, though, he's your quintessential 5-tech at the next level. He's your 3-4 edge pass rusher, defensive end. Guy that's going to be solid at the point of attack in the run game, but can still get you some sacks, you know, in some situations. So I watched him in 4 different games versus Northwood, Saginaw State, Grand Valley State, and Northwest Missouri State. Keep in mind, level of competition isn't great here. I just told you he played against Northwood, Northwest Missouri State. All right? But he dominated. And that's the only prerequisite I have for a guy looking to make it to the league from a smaller school. Dominate the competition. He did that. And so I'm intrigued by this guy. Don't know if he's going to make the roster right off the bat. It would not shock me if he did. because the dude is talented. So in the 7th round, 238th overall selection, Ferris State, defensive end, Zach Seiler, for me, is a which rounds out the Baltimore Ravens 2018 NFL Draft. Ozzie Newsome went out with a bang, went quantity over quality, making 12 selections, but this Ravens roster could use just about every single one of these guys. Maybe with the exception of Greg Sonat. And even probably then they could use him. He's just not ready. But nonetheless, I could foresee a lot of these guys making this roster. This is a Ravens team that could use a little bit of an overhaul. Let's not kid ourselves. They've missed the playoffs the last few years because they're getting older and they need to turn this roster over a bit. And these guys are going to come in and I think be the nucleus of what the Ravens want to do moving forward. And so let's take a look at the score that they were able to amass in this final swan song draft under Ozzie Newsome. So overall, it was a quality draft put forth by Ozzie Newsome, as I mentioned before, quantity over quality. I love the fact that they doubled down on a number of positions, including some of the most glaring holes on this roster. Now, they did fill some of them via free agency, but still, you know, some of those free agency moves were short-term Band-Aid type moves. I love that they doubled down at tight end. I love that they doubled down at wide receiver. I love that they got some more help along the offensive line, doubling down at tackle. I don't know if either one of those guys are going to actually be good, but hell, throw a couple of darts at the board, see what happens. You go and replace Rick Wagner, who you lost in free agency, and Bradley Bozeman. I think this is a really good draft for the Ravens. I like DeShawn Elliott as well. Avery will come in, and I think he'll help in some capacity. Lamar Jackson might be the biggest name of this draft when it's all said and done, but this was a quality draft for Ozzie Newsome on his way out, if this in fact is his last draft as Baltimore Ravens GM. We'll see if the moniker remains the same on the way out the door. In Ozzie, we trust. But that's the Baltimore Ravens 2018 NFL Draft wrap-up. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie Tee Network. Remember, we're changing the game one video at a time. I will see you guys next time. Have a good one. Come back and join me. So I've got many more draft wrap-ups to complete. See you next time.
Louie Tee Network.